Yeah, I want to change gears. We got a lot of calls coming up, but I want to change subjects a little bit and talk about this guy, Mish Shedlock. And I haven't really spent too much time talking about this individual, but he's back out there, trashing me on his blog. He's talking about the fact that I was supposed to be on Capital account on Russia Today, RT. You can see my interview on RT. It's up on YouTube. And he says that I backed out of a debate with him, that I had agreed to debate with him, and that I chickened out because, I'm afraid to debate him. Of course, I never agreed to debate him. I had no idea that they had scheduled me to be on with Mish Shedlock. When I found out that I was going to be on with Mish Shedlock, I basically said, look, I don't want to be on with this guy. If you want me to debate somebody on inflation, deflation, I said, get Robert Prechter, get Harry Dent, get somebody else. But I don't want to debate Mish Shedlock. And it's not because I'm afraid of him. Far from it. I mean, there's nothing to fear in Mish Shedlock. It's just because I don't like the guy personally. I don't think he is of good character. I think he's basically a charlatan. I think he's an opportunist. I don't think he has any business ethics. I think he's a liar. And I don't want to be on the same podium with him just because of who he is as an individual. It's got nothing to do with what he says. I have no problem with arguing with what he has to say. I just don't want to, legitimize him and somehow have him viewed as an equal to me in any sense of the words, based on what he's done. And I'll basically remind people, if you don't know, what this guy did, and then I'll expose him for the charlatan that he is. I mean, normally I don't stoop to his level, but I guess he's, if you poke somebody so many times, eventually you're going to get a reaction, and I think he might have finally done that. But basically, back in 2008, someone put together a YouTube video. Peter Schiff was right. Millions of people saw that video. And I had nothing to do with the Peter Schiff was right video. I saw it for the first time on YouTube, just like a lot of other people. I eventually reached out to the person who produced it, but it was produced independently of me. And it was basically a collection of interviews I did on CNBC and Fox in 2006 and 2007, in which I was forecasting many of the things that happened in the financial crisis. And as this video was going around, I was getting a lot of attention. All of a sudden, the media was looking at me. I was doing a lot of TV because people were focusing on the fact that, hey, Peter Schiff did get it right. Wall Street got it wrong and this guy got it right. Now, this guy, Mish Shedlock, wanted to try to take advantage of that popularity to gain some popularity himself. And so he put out a piece, Peter Schiff was wrong, basically mocking the Peter Schiff was right piece, saying that I wasn't right, I was completely wrong because my clients got wiped out. And he got a hold of one individual account that was down almost 60%. I think it was 58%. And that account was pretty much 100% invested in gold stocks, energy, and commodity stocks, which is why it was down the way it was. But all of a sudden, as a result of that unfair attack, and I'll get into a minute why it was unfair, but as a result of that attack, all of a sudden the media started focusing on the fact that I was wrong. That attack spawned a Wall Street Journal basic hit piece against me saying Peter Schiff makes mincemeat out of his clients, and the whole idea was to destroy my credibility. So all of a sudden, the Austrian school had some credibility. There was a spokesman out there that was actually being taken seriously. I actually had a good record of forecasting what had happened, and the media didn't really want to deal with me. And all of a sudden, Mish Shedlock gave them a reason to discredit me once again by saying, wait a minute, he wasn't right, he was completely wrong. And it really took a lot of the air out of my sails. And I think it did a lot to keep me out of the media. I think it gave a lot of people a way to discredit me. Whenever the conventional media said, well, Peter Schiff did this, or Peter Schiff was totally wrong, he lost all of his money, he's broke. And so Mish really created that weapon that people were able to use against me for years. They're still using it against me, and it's unfair. But I think more than any one person, Mish Shedlock did more to damage the cause of liberty, freedom, the Austrian school, because I was probably, at that point, its most popular spokesman. I had a lot of credibility, and he gave the mainstream media and Wall Street a reason to ignore me and to marginalize me because they took the false information that he was spreading and they ran with it. Now, and the big problem I have is that Mish Shedlock wrote this piece, Peter Schiff was wrong, purportedly to be journalism, as if he was just some, independent guy looking at my record. The reality is it was all a marketing piece, and I think a very unethical and untruthful marketing piece for his fledgling company that he worked for. And it was all about bashing my firm and me and holding out his firm as an alternative. He was basically saying, if you're a client of Euro Pacific Capital, you should close your account, you should sell all your stocks and transfer your money to me because I'm going to do a much better job of managing it. I know what I'm doing. Peter Schiff is a fool. He has no idea what he's doing. So send your money to me and let me manage it because I've got a much better track record than Peter Schiff, so send me your money. And all that, of course, was completely false. I pointed out to Shedlock at the time. See, he said, here's one of Peter Schiff's accounts. And he challenged me to refute that. He said, look, I've only got one account. Maybe they're not all this bad. If they're not, Peter Schiff should publish his track record. Peter Schiff should come out and show all the accounts that did well. Now, Mish Shedlock knew that he was throwing down a gauntlet that the regulators prevented me from picking up. At the time, I had a brokerage firm only. We didn't manage any money. And it is illegal. It is against FINRA rules to advertise a track record. It is also against FINRA rules to use a spokesman. So in other words, if I had a client who doubled his money or tripled his money, and I can't even talk about performance, but if I had an account that did really well, it is illegal for me to showcase that account. I can't hold out that account and say, hey, look, this is a great, this account did really well. And I can't come out with a track record. So Shedlock is allowed to show one account that did poorly for that 1 year. I might have thousands of accounts that did better or that did really well. I can't show any of them. Right? I'm not allowed to say anything about my performance. Yet he knew that. He knew that. But also, look at what that account owned. It owned gold stocks. It owned energy stocks. He basically said in his piece that I had decimated this account and it would take 20 years or something for this guy to get even, assuming, maybe a 7% return per year. I mean, those stocks probably recouped their 2008 loss in under 2 years. Probably recouped it all. I mean, if you look at what gold stocks did, gold stocks were down like 75% in '08. But then they went up 300 or 400% in the next couple of years. Gold stocks were much higher in 2011 than they were at their peak in 2008. So sure, they went down, but it didn't take 20 years to come back up. One of the things he really criticized me for in that piece was the Australian dollar. He had a big chart of the Australian dollar, and he said Peter Schiff was dead wrong on the Australian dollar. Look, he said it would go up. It's gone down, and the Australian dollar had gone down in 2008. From its mid-2008, it was at about $1, parity with the U.S. dollar, and it went down to close to 60 cents. Now, Mish Shedlock said, get out. It's going down. Sell your Australian dollars. Peter Schiff was wrong. Well, where's the Australian dollar today? It's higher than it was at its peak in 2008. It's worth more than $1. It's up about 70% since Mish Shedlock told everybody to sell the Australian dollar and send his money to his firm. So the fact of the matter is he unfairly criticized my firm. He didn't give me any credit. He said, yeah, here's an account that's down in 2008. But how did the guy do in 07, 06, 05, 04, 03, 02? Because some of the clients that we had that lost money in 2008 were just giving back some of the profits that they earned prior years. And of course, he didn't give me any credit for what happened after 2008. In fact, I actually called up Mish Shedlock and I said, look, Mish, if I have an account that's down 50% in 2008, what if a client sends me $100,000 and at the end of 2008 it's down to $50,000, but 5 years later it's up tenfold to $500,000? Was I still wrong? And his response to me is, yes, Peter Schiff, you will always be wrong. It doesn't matter what happened to your accounts any of the years before 2008, and it doesn't matter what happens to them in any of the years subsequent to 2008. Because your accounts were down in 2008, you were wrong. You will always be wrong. And of course, it's Mish Shedlock that's wrong. I mean, there's an old expression that if you live in glass houses, you shouldn't throw stones. Well, when it comes to performance, Mish Shedlock lives in the biggest glass house of anybody. So what I want to talk about when I get back is exactly what is his performance, because I can actually pull up his performance because it's on his website, right? It's published. He has a registered investment advisory firm, just like mine. By the way, I have an RIA right now, and so I do have published returns that people can check on my mutual funds and on my managed accounts. I'm going to talk about his returns and the truth behind his marketing hit piece that he did on me. And that's the real reason that I won't appear on a show with him. It's not because I'm afraid of him, right? It's because I don't want to be on a show with somebody that has no ethics, no morals, that doesn't tell the truth, and that did so much to damage the cause that he claims that he believes in. And he even claims that he endorsed my Senate campaign. It was all self-serving. It was all phony. Mish Shedlock never sent me a quarter. He didn't donate one nickel to my 2010 Senate campaign. That's how much he supported me. But we'll be right back, and then we'll continue with your calls here on Open Line Friday.
You've heard of Karl Marx, right? Well, now, meet his worst nightmare. This is the Peter Schiff Show.
I'm talking about Mish Shedlock and his unfair attacks against me and against my firm in his effort to try to market the services of his competitive firm. Maybe I put the word competitive in quotes because it's really not much of a competitor. But he basically made his reputation or tried to build his firm by tearing me down and basically saying that, hey, I was wrong because look how much foreign stocks went down in 2008. And of course, you know, just because foreign stocks went down in 2008 didn't mean I was wrong on what was going to happen in the financial crisis. In fact, if you go back and you read Crash Proof, I wrote in the book that when the U.S. real estate bubble burst and we had our crisis and the U.S. stock market went down, I was expecting foreign stock markets to go down too. So I did predict that. I said that foreign stock markets would go down in sympathy with ours. What I did get wrong is that I expected those declines to be lessened by the positive impact of appreciating foreign currency. So I thought that foreign stocks in dollar terms would not go down as much as U.S. stocks. That ended up not being true. Foreign stocks went down more than U.S. stocks in 2008 because the dollar didn't go down, it went up. But in 2009, the dollar got crushed. And so as a result, foreign stocks came back a lot more. They rallied much more in 2009 than did U.S. stocks. And, you know, look where the dollar is now against those currencies. The dollar made new lows against all the currencies pretty much that it rallied against in 2008. But also, if you look at my investment strategy that I outlined in that book that Shedlock was criticizing, foreign dividend-paying foreign stocks was just 1/3 of a three-legged stool. I recommended physical precious metals, and I recommended a lot of cash. Why did I recommend holding a lot of cash? Because I thought that we might have a better opportunity to buy dividend-paying foreign stocks when they went down in sympathy with a decline in the U.S. market. So I actually got that part of it right. But he really turned the attention to just focusing on one subset of my total investment strategy, which was the foreign stocks, and looking at how much they went down only in 2008, ignoring all the returns prior to 2008, and of course now ignoring all the returns subsequent to 2008. In fact, when I contacted the Wall Street Journal in 2010 to say, hey, you wrote a lousy article about how awful our performance was in 2008. Do you want to write an article, an article about 2009, right? And they had no interest in doing a story about that. They only wanted a story when my performance was bad. They didn't want to do anything about my performance being good. But getting back to Mish Shedlock, so what was the real reason? Why did he put together this piece? Well, Mish Shedlock is an employee of a small registered investment advisor. He doesn't own it. He's an employee. He's an investment advisor. Now, when he first wrote his piece back in like January of 2009, at the end of 2008, his firm only managed $18 million. $18 million. I mean, that's less than a junior broker would manage at a typical wirehouse firm. Yet that's all the entire firm managed, $18 million. After over 4 years in the business, they had 75 accounts. So they had 75 customers, and they were managing $18 million. They didn't even have enough money under management to file as an SEC-registered investment advisor. You need $25 million. Now, where are they today? Today they have $75 million under management and 342 clients. Still, it's a tiny, tiny firm. But almost all of their clients came in 2009 after Mish attacked me. In that year, they raised $40 million, and they got an extra 243 accounts. Since then, in the 3 years since then, they've only added 24 accounts. That's like eight accounts a year. I mean, they were raising $4.5 million a year before they attacked me. They've been raising $5 million a year in the 3 years after the year they attacked me. The only year they raised a decent amount of money, and it's not even decent, it's still small, is the year that Mish Shedlock went out and attacked me. So his campaign worked in that sense that he was able to raise money for his firm that he works for by attacking me, convincing people that I didn't know what I was doing, and he did, to close their accounts with me and send their money to Mish Shedlock. He was able to raise more money in that year than all the other years he's worked combined. In fact, it looks like almost 80% of the money that his firm manages, they brought that in after Mish Shedlock's critique of me. So it worked well for Mish. How did it work for Mish's clients? Unfortunately, not nearly so well. They've got four investment strategies, four strategies. Only one of those four strategies has beaten its benchmark. And that one has been around for 8 years. And it's beaten its benchmark only because of 1 year, 2008. The year the market went down, he outperformed. So he had one good year. Every other year, the other 7 years, he underperformed the benchmark. The other three funds he had all underperformed. So the one that beat the benchmark was Absolute Return. And again, he only had one good year out of 8. That's it. But his other strategy, Hedged Growth, that's up 15% since it started in 2005. Its benchmark is the S&P, which was up 40%. So he made his clients less than 2% a year. Oh, by the way, that other fund I just mentioned, the first one, Absolute Return, that did beat its benchmark, not in the last 4 years. In the last 4 years, it's underperformed. In fact, in the last 1 year, in the last 2 years, and in the last 3 years, they've actually lost money, negative returns. So the people that closed their accounts with me because they thought Mish Shedlock was so great sent Mish Shedlock money, and, well, it was lost. Now, let's look at his other strategy, the dividend growth strategy. That one was started out in 2007. It's actually down 7.8%, down almost 8% since the fund began in 2007 versus the S&P that's up almost 6%. Then he's got this commodity-focused strategy that's only up 2.3% since 2007, which is about half the gain that the MSCI World Commodities Index registered. That's its benchmark. I'm going to talk more about this in the beginning of the second hour, and then we're going to take your calls. So stay tuned for hour 2 of the Peter Schiff Show. We will be right back.
You make no friends in the pits and you take no prisoners. 1 minute you're up $500,000 in soybeans, and the next, boom, your kids don't go to college and they've repossessed your Bentley. Are you with me?
The revolution starts now.
We have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Turn those machines back on! You are about to enter the Peter Schiff Show.
Show me the money!
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The Peter Schiff Show is on. Call in now. 855-4-SCHIFF. That's 855-472-4433.
I don't know when they decided that they wanted to make a virtue out of selfishness.
Your money, your stories, your freedom. The Peter Schiff Show.
This is Peter Schiff. Hour 2 of the Peter Schiff Show is underway. This is Open Line Friday. 855-4-SCHIFF is the number to call. For those of you who are premium members, you'll notice I'm not sporting my headset that I normally have on to hear the callers. We've decided to change it up in favor of a little earpiece, so maybe it makes for better viewing that I don't have a big headset on. And if you're not a premium member, make sure to sign up. You know, you can get video as well as audio for the Peter Schiff Show. Try it out. I think the first 30 days are free. So if you don't like it, you can always cancel at no cost. But if you like it, continue to pay and support the show in its efforts to bring this information to a wider audience. Before I continue with the open lines, I just want to sum up what I was speaking about towards the end of the first hour with respect to Mish Shedlock, who was once again up on his blog trying to take a few pot shots at me. I wanted to just sum up, again, the performance of Mish Shedlock. So he attacks me purportedly to prove that I'm no good, but really just as an advertisement for his, fledgling RIA that had been struggling to attract business for 4 years because they only had, 18 million in assets under management. They still only have 75 million, which is still, many, brokers at firms, individual brokers will manage more than that. This is the entire firm that he works for. That's all they manage. So there's not that many people there. I think only maybe 3 or 4 people work there. So a lot of this money is probably Mish Shedlock's clients. Not sure how much involved he is in the active management of the portfolios, but he's the point of contact probably. And he's the reason that they've got all their money, because almost all their money came in 2009 because of the publicity that he generated for himself by attacking me, which is his goal. But he's got 4 investment strategies. 3 of them have underperformed their benchmarks. Only 1 has outperformed over the 8 years since it's been around. But again, the outperformance is entirely due to 1 year. He underperformed in 7 out of 8 years. And in fact, in the last 4 years, he's underperformed. He's lost money in that fund in the last 3. All the other strategies have done poorly, particularly this dividend payer strategy, down almost 8% since 2007. I mean, that's horrific. His other, that's 8 years. He talked about 1 year of my bad performance. What about 8 years of bad performance? How do you lose almost 6% in 8 years on dividend paying stocks? Commodity fund is, he's earned less than 0.5% a year in his commodity fund since it began in 2007. That's a lot less than the inflation that Mish claims doesn't exist. In fact, even his hedged growth fund is up less than 2% per year since it began in 2005. So for 8 years, he's returned less than 2% a year. Inflation, even Mish should have to acknowledge that inflation is more than 2% a year. So he can't even outperform cash under a mattress. Yet all he wants to do is criticize me for my bad performance, when it turns out that one of the worst things that you could have done in 2009, after reading his Peter Schiff was wrong hit piece, one of the worst things you can do was send money to Mish Shedlock. And in fact, look what you missed out on. Look at the returns that you missed out on as gold stocks rebounded, as foreign currencies rebounded, as the energy sector rebounded. You missed out on a lot of that stuff by following Mish Shedlock's advice. Sure, if he had your money in 2008, then you did better with Mish than you did with me in foreign stocks. But how did you do in all the years before that? And more importantly, how have you done in the years subsequent to that? I'd say it's been a disaster for the Mish Shedlock clients. But look, at the end of the day, the performance speaks for itself. And you know what? I've actually got a track record myself now. It doesn't go all the way back to 2005 because, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to talk about the gains that my clients may have achieved in their brokerage accounts. I can't claim credit for any of that. Whatever happened, happened. But I did start a registered investment advisory firm, and that firm, Europe Pacific Asset Management, all you have to do, and Mish Shedlock can do the same thing, but all you have to do is go to Europac.net, go to services, click on our managed products, and all of the documented track records are there for all of our managed account strategies and all of our mutual funds. So take a look at the performance and then take a look at Shedlock. In fact, Mish ought to do that too before he continues to criticize me for poor performance. He ought to look at his own performance and then shut up. And of course, the reason I don't want to be on a show with him has nothing to do with my being afraid of him. I mean, he's the last person that I would be afraid of. I mean, I think I could tear his arguments in shred. The problem is, if he had some integrity, if he had criticized me in a fair way, in an ethical way, hey, bring it on. I'll debate anybody. Right? Anybody that legitimately wants to debate me on the issues, right? I will debate. But when you have a charlatan, when you have a guy like this, opportunist, who knowingly made false allegations against me, who threw down a gauntlet he knew I couldn't pick up, who unfairly criticized me, took one account out of tens of thousands of accounts. We've got, 20,000 customers? At this point, he only has 342. How hard is it to find an account that was down? And not that I'm saying that most of our accounts that were in the stock market were down in 2008. That's not the point. But of course, he takes this 1 year and this one account and says, aha, look, This is how Peter Schiff did. And now, of course, to this day, every time I go on the internet, Peter Schiff wiped all his clients out. All of his accounts lost 60 to 7%. He's broke. All of this can be traced to the false accusations that were launched by Mish Shedlock in his attempt to feather his own nest, to ride on my coattails, and to finally get a little bit of money to manage, and then, of course, do such a poor job with it. And so that's why I'm not going on shows with Mish Shedlock. And I think if anybody was in my shoes, they would probably come to the same conclusion as me. But let me go back to the phones. First up is going to be